As St. Paul continues to address the division within the Corinthian community today, he talks about how he's a steward of Christ, a servant, a steward of the mysteries. For St. Paul and for any leader of the church, it's not their gospel, it's Christ's gospel, and he subjects himself to it. Again, going back to the message of the cross, the gospel message is the message of the cross, which is why despite, the ridicule from the Greeks, despite the scandal that it caused the Jews, it was a message that St. Paul proudly proclaimed. Why? Well, because it's God's message, and he's a servant to it. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe not, but sometimes we're a little reluctant to preach the entire gospel message. We're afraid of what others will think. We're afraid of what others will say. It's a call to courage. That virtue of courage. As St. Paul continues in the first reading, he talks about then this idea of judgment. It does not concern me in the least that I be judged by you or any human tribunal. Again, that notion of courage, not being afraid of what he says. It's a gospel. Even if it gets him into prison, he's not afraid of human judgment. He's afraid of divine judgment. I'm not conscious of anything against me, but I do not thereby stand acquitted, meaning that St. Paul doesn't have anything he feels is doing anything immoral, but yet he still humbles himself to be in front of the divine judgment of God. In our lives, maybe we're not committing big sins, but we still recognize the need that we are in salvation, that we need salvation. That the only way we get to heaven is through the mercy and grace of God, that he's been merciful and he's forgiven not only the big sins, but the little sins. Therefore, do not make any judgment before the appointed time until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will manifest the motives of our hearts. Then everyone will receive praise from God. So St. Paul ends this section of our first reading with some now pastoral, practical advice. Leave the divine judgment to God. Do not pass judgment, which, again, that word judgment is one that's so often misused in our Christian, our Christian mentality. People say all the time as a way of justifying their own moral actions, don't judge me. The judgment that St. Paul is talking about here is a judgment of salvation. Will you be in God's company or will you not? That's the judgment that St. Paul and that Jesus refers to in the Gospels when he says, do not judge lest thee be judged. But we have to understand the important distinction that every day of our life we make moral judgments. We should do this, we should not do that. It's a very important component of our life. And if we love somebody, we will often suggest, no, you should not do this. Or yes, you should do this. It's a judgment of the moral law, but it's not a judgment of salvation. That's the key here. So always remember that we are not above the gospel. We do not know better than God. We are his servants to the message. And we let God and his divine judgment take place. If there's someone in need of salvation, we feel that their soul is in jeopardy, we pray for them, we encourage them, not condemn them. It's not our place. And sometimes, though, that takes courage. It takes courage because we feel that they might not like the message. But again, we are God's servants to his gospel message. May God bless you.